What's going on, guys? It's finally time for the Family Guy tier list. If you saw my recent video where I ranked every adult animated show, you would have seen that Family Guy, especially the early seasons, was one of my favorite shows of all time, and I set myself a challenge of watching seasons 1 to 23 to make this video for you guys. So let's jump into it and I'll let you guys know what I think. So starting off with season 1, this is actually one of the seasons that I had seen the least. I'd maybe only watched it once or twice, and you can really see that they're just trying to find their footing with this season. The animation at the time was done by a different company. There were a lot of inconsistencies in the animation quality and the character designs. A few of the characters as well just weren't fully developed yet, which is normal for a first season. I mostly noticed it with Stewie and Lois, and then Meg as well was also voiced by a completely different voice actor this season. Mila Kunis came on later on. But with that said, it's still an enjoyable season. It's still funny. It's just not as sharp as what was to come. But there's still some episode standouts from this season. There were 3 in there that I thought were really good, narrative-wise and comedy-wise. Brian, Portrait of a Dog, A Hero Sits Next Door, and Death Has a Shadow were the 3 best ones in my opinion. The humor and the wit's not as sharp as it is in the later seasons, but you can really see what they're trying to do here. I thought there were 2 really good cutaway standouts with this season as well. We've got the joke where Peter says he hit a deer with his car, but then we find out that he actually just collided into the deer's car and they're trading insurance information. It's still really funny watching it now. And then we've got the cutaway where Peter talks about how TV programming is just getting so short that they're having to combine shows now. And then we've got Homicide: Life on Sesame Street, where Sesame Street's being combined with Law and Order or a crime show. And this is also something that Family Guy does really well in the first few seasons, where they parody well-known IPs and popular characters. So for the beginning of the show, I'm going to put this one into decent. It's not great by any stretch yet, but you can see the promise. You can see the promise of what they're trying to do. And now we're moving on to series 2, which is one of my favorite seasons of the show. This, in my opinion, is the beginning of the golden era of Family Guy. The animation here is a little bit tighter. You can see narrative-wise, the episodes, they're picking up a lot more, and they're just hitting you non-stop with these cutaways and funny jokes. There are a lot of really memorable moments from this season as well. The episode standouts for me were DeBoom, He's Too Sexy for His Fat, and E. Peter Bus Unum. And also a special mention for Wasted Talent, just because they've got that knee scene that's so famous. For cutaway standouts, this season had some of the best of the whole show. In DeBoom, we've got Peter and the family walking through this wasteland after Y2K, and they come across these people that talk about this mystical cloud that can give them whatever they want. And Peter asks for potato salad, and they go,
"Show me potato salad!"
Still one of the most iconic scenes for every fan of Family Guy. We've also got Peter getting caught peeping in the women's locker room, and he's just got like a piece of a door in front of him. Peter getting captured by the apes on Planet of the Apes and then trying to get out of it by telling them an ape joke. And then my personal favorite of the whole season was the Jerry Springer type talk show where the man comes out to his girlfriend as a horse and then the horse comes out as a broom and then just falls over.
Actually, I'm not really a horse. I'm a broom.
That's still one of the funniest scenes of any animated show I've ever seen. So with that said, season 2 is going straight into fantastic for me. Then we're moving on to season 3. This is continuing the golden era of Family Guy. You can see writing wise that they've really seen what's working for the show here and then tried to develop it as much as they can. Each episode has such a good mix of humor and heart and just a lot of thought put into the storytelling. The episode standouts for me were Mr. Saturday Night, A Mission Impossible, Death Lives, To Love and Die in Dixie, and The Thin White Line. And cutaway standouts for me, there's just one cutaway in Mr. Saturday Night where a woman is flirting with Peter and she's like,
"Wouldst thou take a gander underneath my frock?"
Sure, whatever floats your boat. There you go.
Then we've also got the cutaway where Brian talks about the subliminal advertising in TV shows and how they're trying to convince kids to smoke.
"Timmy, where's Lassie?"
She's out in the orchard, Ma. Peaches are coming in mighty early this year.
Smoke.
What's that, Lassie?
Are you smoking yet?
It is one of the best and tightest structured jokes I've ever seen, and it makes me laugh every time. So overall, just really good season. You can see that they've really taken note of what's worked for the earlier seasons and just delivered here. So that one's going straight into fantastic. And next we're moving on to season 4, which is actually my favorite season of Family Guy. So right before this, it's interesting to know that the show was actually cancelled after season 3 and then it was revived. And I'm not sure if this had something to do with why it's so great, but it seems that they were coming to this season with a lot of fresh ideas, a lot of fresh jokes, and the whole season just seemed so energized. Every joke hit, non-stop cutaways, peak writing. They really knew what they were doing with this season. The episode standouts for me, there's a lot here to mention actually. The whole series is really good in my opinion, but PTV, Petergeist, Patriot Games, Petarded, North by North Quahog, and The Perfect Castaway are all just fantastic. A+ episodes. For the cutaway standouts, we've got Dom Knotts going,
"There's way too many ostriches. Why are there so many ostriches?"
Family Guy does this thing where they just give these characters the most ridiculous voices and put them in these absurd situations, and it just makes me laugh so much every time. We've got Geppetto trying to get Pinocchio to lie while he's bending over. Vincent Van Gogh giving his ear and then giving his penis to his girlfriend. That one makes me laugh every time. And then we've also got the cave woman finding the caveman's pornography, but it's actually just these engraved stones that have like a silhouette of women. It's just such a clever and well thought out joke. So yeah, this season, it hits on all cylinders, I thought. It's the one I watched the most, and it just makes me laugh so much every time. So that one's going straight into fantastic. Next up, we've got season 5. This one, another just consistently great series. Really smart satire, memorable cutaways, all the things we go to Family Guy for. They nailed it. It's another one I'll go back to pretty frequently. I'd say series 3 to 6 are the most common ones I tend to revisit. Some episode standouts here: Bill and Peter's Bogus Journey, No Meals on Wheels, Saving Private Brian, and Hell Comes to Quahog. Those are all just gold from start to finish. Some cutaway standouts as well. Their first parody of The Wizard of Oz, where the wizard grants all of them their wish and then says to Dorothy,
"And Dorothy, you wanted herpes. But little did you know, you've had herpes all along."
just so ridiculous. Then we've got Stewie having dinner with Martin Landau and he spits the whole steak onto his face.
Underprivileged. Maybe chew your food, a little champ.
Just such a funny visual gag. The horses from Brokeback Mountain looking inside the tent, and then the horse that's about to be put down by its owner. And then the horse takes the gun off him and shoots him in the leg and starts riding him. Just one of the funniest gags in the show. So yeah, season 5, even though it's one I revisit a lot, it's still not as good as season 4, so it's just going into good. Next up, we're moving on to series 6, and there's a lot of great things happen in this series. It's a short series compared to the other ones, but the episodes are great quality, and it's also got the iconic Blue Harvest Star Wars parody. Some episode standouts for me were Stewie kills Lois, Lois kills Stewie, Blue Harvest obviously, McStroke, and Long John Peter. Just some really quality episodes in there. And some cutaway standouts. They introduced Consuela, who becomes prominent in the later seasons, but she makes her first appearance saying we need more lemon pledge in a court scene. We've also got Peter being Jack A. Harry's personal grocery shopper.
Look at this one. A desk of Cheez-Its. A desk? Where are you getting these units of measurement from?
Her descriptions of what she needs on her shopping list never fails to make me laugh. Then we've got Ringo writing a song for the Beatles and Paul saying, "You know what? We'll put that on the fridge," because they're obviously not going to use it. So yeah, another really great series. I'd say it's on par with season 5. Not as good as season 4, but still really quality. I'm going to put this one into good. And next we're moving on to season 7. I thought this series still had some pretty good standout episodes and the character writing was really strong. This is something that's going to take a hit in the later series, but for this one, I thought it was still going pretty well. Episode standouts, we've got Road to Germany, Three Kings, Ocean's 3.5, some really good episodes in there. A lot of great cutaways in this series as well, some of my favorites actually. We've got Horton Here's a Domestic Dispute. We've got Impotent Guys That Need a Distraction. Yosemite Sam trying on skinny leg jeans. Every time I watch that clip, it makes me die laughing. It's hilarious. We've got Morbidly Obese Albert instead of Fat Albert. Those were all just gold, I reckon. So I'm going to put series 7 into good. It's still not as good as series 2 to 4, but I still think it's quality. And now we're moving on to season 8. This is the first series I remember watching and going, there has been a noticeable dip in quality here. It seemed like they were taking a lot of shortcuts and they weren't being as thoughtful with the joke writing. So there's still some good moments though. In terms of episode standouts, we've still got Road to the Multiverse, Something 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 Dark Side, and Doggone. I think those were all really good, especially the Star Wars parody. I think all those that were done in Family Guy, just brilliant. Some cutaway standouts. We've got the news presenter Chris Matthews and his head being used to show the other news reporter on the screen because it's so big. We've got the grandpa reliving his youthful shenanigans, but it's actually just a lot of anal sex with his friends, we come to find out. There was still some really funny moments in there, I found. It's just, when you compared it to the earlier series, you start to go, something is changing here. And yeah, you'll soon find out as I review them what had changed. So I'm going to put series 8 into decent. Not terrible yet, definitely not terrible, but nowhere near as funny as the earlier ones. And next up, we're moving on to season 9. This unfortunately continued the trend of series 8 where it wasn't terrible by any stretch, but the comedy and the joke writing wasn't as sharply written as it was beforehand. The comedy also feels more random here. At least in the other series, it would be more based on what the character was saying and have something to do with their scenario, whereas this was just completely random situations. But still, there were a few episode standouts in this series, I thought. We've got, and then there were fewer, Road to the North Pole and Halloween on Spooner Street. I thought that was a really good themed episode. Some cutaway standouts. We've got the cute penguin from Penguin Publishing being like Harvey Weinstein to give a woman a book deal. I thought that was just completely out of left field and funny. And then we've also got reality turning its back on Gary Busey. So yeah, this series, to be honest, is not one that I go back to. Like I said, the series wasn't terrible, but it was really beginning to decline here, so I'm going to put this one into weak. Then we're moving on to season 10. This season I thought was actually pretty mediocre. Really didn't make me laugh that much. Season 9 had a few more jokes in it, I thought. Wasn't as many standout episodes, and it didn't have much of a character focus either. Still, some episode standouts. Forget Me Not, Lego My Mego. Back to the Pilot was interesting. There's an episode where they obviously go back to the pilot of Family Guy, and you know, they're breaking the fourth wall and they're making some funny comments about the animation quality, the characters, things like that. It was funny at the time, but it's also something that they've continued to revisit, I think, a little bit too much into the later series, where they keep breaking the fourth wall and they're constantly calling out their own tropes and flaws in the show to where it sort of becomes a parody of itself, but this is just something you start to notice later on. In terms of cutaway standouts, there wasn't any in this one that really made me laugh too much or were noteworthy, so I've left that one empty here. So I'm going to move that one into weak. There's going to be quite a few for this category. Next, we're moving on to season 11. Just like before, continued a slow decline. This one had a huge over-reliance on shock humor, I thought. Family Guy can do shock humor really well, but this series, I just didn't think it landed that well. And the stories also started to feel a little bit recycled. In terms of episode standouts, I thought the Yog Yilmaf episode was alright, Roads to Vegas, Into Far Air. In terms of cutaway standouts, there wasn't that many for this series. I liked God unveiling Asian people for the first time. I thought that was funny. And just Carter Pewterschmidt offering some clementines in the locker room while everyone's naked. Thought that was alright. This series I'm going to put into weak. Wasn't great. Almost never revisit it. Now we're going to move on to series 12, and this is one of the weakest seasons of Family Guy in my opinion. They killed off Brian this series for seemingly no reason. There wasn't some huge build up in the narrative towards this. It was just one episode. They got rid of him, I suppose, for shock factor, and then brought him back later on because it had a terrible fan reaction. So I thought the other episodes as well were really forgettable. Just a bit of a miss, this series, I thought. Wasn't really any episode standouts or cutaway standouts. So this one, unfortunately, I'm going to put into awful, but it's not all bad. We're moving on to season 13 now. Not a lot better, but better than series 12. That's what's important here. Yeah, so season 13, there were a few memorable episodes. Like I said, continued decline in storytelling and joke writing here. There were a few episode standouts. Take My Wife, Baking Bad, Roasted Guy. I thought these were kind of funny. There was one really funny cutaway, I thought, of a woodchuck telling his parents he wants to go into a different profession.
Let's try that on for size. How much disease could a woodchuck doctor cure if a woodchuck doctor could cure disease? Is that sounding right to you?
But apart from that, that was pretty much the only one out of all the episodes that I thought really made me laugh. So that one I'm going to put into weak. Season 14, continued decline here. The humor starts to feel really forced as well, and just with the storytelling, it seemed like they were struggling with the tone a little bit. It seemed to be all over the place. There were a few decent episodes, I thought. Peter Normal Activity was alright. A lot going on upstairs. That was pretty much it. Some cutaway standouts. There was just one in this series that I thought was really clever. It's one I watch every now and then. Santa convincing Rudolph the uncircumcised reindeer to get a circumcision. And then he says that Mrs. Claus told him that he'll lose sensitivity. It's just one of the funniest things. But apart from that, not that many to be honest. Another series I don't really revisit. So that one's going to go into week. Next, we're moving on to series 15. I thought there were a few emotional storylines in here and some compelling narratives, but overall, not that great. Pretty hit or miss. Some episode standouts for this series were The Dating Game and Saturated Fat Guy. I thought those episodes were alright. Some cutaway standouts were Sesame Street on HBO. They were making a joke about how everything on HBO is super sexualized, so they did the same for Sesame Street. Consuela being the CEO of Yahoo, explaining why the business was failing. I thought that was really funny. And then also one of my favorite cutaways of all time.
Bo Peep! What's going on here?
You've got a friend in me?
Just one of the most clever and funny cutaways they've ever done. So short and sweet, beautifully executed joke. But just like the other ones, I'm just gonna have to put this one into week. You'll soon see that quite a few of this midsection, especially after series 9 onwards, are in a very similar sort of spot for me. And next we're moving on to season 16. Similarly, the other ones are still occasionally funny, but just didn't seem like there was much thought put into the storytelling with these episodes. A few episode standouts here were Switch the Flip, Don't Be a Dickens at Christmas, and Crimes and Meg's Demeanor. I thought those episodes were all alright. Nothing to write home about, nothing crazy funny, but in terms of storylines, I thought they were alright. There were a few good cutaways in this series though, I'll give them that. We've got Lois and Meg sitting courtside at the NBA.
You okay? You guys okay?
Great seats.
Yeah, it's a whole different game when you sit down here.
And then we've also got a really random cutaway of Brian and Stewie de-pantsing James Cameron while he's down excavating the Titanic. This one, just like the others though, I'm going to have to put it into week. And then we're moving on to season 17. This one felt really forgettable for me when I was watching it. Like I said, I've only watched seasons 11 to 23 really recently. And as I was watching this, it just seemed like another one of these last few where I'm like, I just can't imagine myself going back to this. There were some good attempts at character depth here, but overall, I think it's going to be mostly forgettable. Really wasn't that funny. There were 2 alright episodes, Big Trouble and Little Quahog and Throw It Away. I thought those ones were alright. There were a few good cutaways that I wrote down here. We've got Gandalf yelling Oksana Bayul at the mountain, and then she crashes into it and gets out drunk. I thought that was really funny. And then Minions 3 with Harvey Weinstein, I thought was really f***ed up, but really funny. Yeah, same as the others, I'm gonna put this into week. Then we're moving on to season 18. Very similar to season 17 and the others, continued decline. Sort of felt like it lacks direction like some of these other ones, like it's just sort of running on autopilot. They try to be a lot edgier than some of the earlier seasons here, but doesn't quite work. In terms of episode standouts, Christmas is Coming was alright, Baby Stewie was also okay. Cutaway standouts, there was one really funny cutaway where Brian and Stewie are doing a fiber commercial and they can't mention shitting or pooing, everything has to be done in this really rosy way. And so they're talking about they need to take a comfort, which means take a shit, things like that. Really gentle words around the fact that you're about to have explosive diarrhea by taking their product. I thought that was a really clever cutaway, but that was it for that whole series, unfortunately. That's the only one that I thought was noteworthy. So season 18 is also going to go into week. And now we're getting into the seasons that, in my opinion, are really going downhill fast. Whether it's just new writers or just lack of inspiration for the show, it just seems like they can't quite find what they're trying to do with it now, and they're trying to fit into the current landscape. It's the same problem that I think The Simpsons has, where they want to continue making the show, but they kind of have to make it work in 2025 and they don't know how to do that. So we're going to start off with season 19. This one for me was just as bad as season 12. Really weak writing, really bad pacing. I think partly it's because they had next to no cutaways. They only sprinkled in a few throughout the entire series. And then you add that onto just really poorly paced stories. It just sort of ended up with each episode feeling really sluggish. Whereas cutaways, sure, people make fun of them in Family Guy because it's a gag that they throw in, but it does make the episodes move a lot quicker and it gives them more opportunities to cut in and move through the story a lot faster. So for this one, yeah, I just thought I only watched it for the first time about a week ago. I thought it was pretty forgettable in a way. In terms of episode and cutaway standouts, unfortunately, I just wrote none for this one. Nothing really noteworthy here that really stood out to me. So that one is going into awful with season 12. And then we're moving on to season 20. So season 20 suffers the same fate as some of the earlier series just before this, where it sort of feels a bit directionless and also starts to feel like a parody of itself. I mentioned when I was ranking season 10 how they started breaking the fourth wall a lot from that sort of that series onwards, which is fine when you do a sort of a once-off joke. But you start to notice it in these other series sort of beyond season 15. They start making fun of the fact that they do cutaways in the show by calling a lot of attention to it and then just doing a really lazy cutaway. And then they've just become very self-aware to the point where it's not funny or a clever gag anymore. It just feels like a lazy joke writing, basically. There were 2 episodes though that I thought were alright. LASIK Instinct and Rock Hard I thought were okay. Nothing crazy funny in there, nothing really great in there honestly, but in terms of just the storylines alone, I think were alright for those 2 episodes. So that series I'm going to move into bad. Then we're moving on to season 21. It sort of felt with this series that they tried a few different things, they experimented. You could see that they were trying something more cinematic. There was far less cutaways. Everything was sort of made to feel like a film. I don't think it really works though for what they sort of do in this show. Family Guy is known for one thing. They're not known for these super cinematic or incredibly deep stories or anything like that. They're known for gags and quick laughs. And so this angle just sort of felt weird with the characters that they've developed. In terms of episode standouts, I thought Oscar's Guy was alright. Bend or Blockbuster was another alright one. I'm going to put season 21 into bad. Then we've got season 22. Another unfortunately not great one, but I watched it anyway. Sort of continues the trend of just recycled jokes, it feels. Wasn't a huge fan of this series. In terms of episode standouts, I thought Fertilized Meg was alright. Series 22, I'm going to move into bad. And then lucky last, we've got the most recent series, series 23. Not great as well, I'll be honest. The writing for this show, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but in the last maybe 5 seasons before this and season 23, it feels like just the writing for this show, it sort of starts to feel a bit like something you'd see on TikTok, just in terms of the really random ideas. And just a lot of the characters just act completely out of character. Because that's fine to put them in cutaways where they're in these different situations that serve the joke, but storyline wise, I just felt they were doing things that would completely contradict what they would be doing in earlier seasons of the show. In terms of episode standouts though, they did one parody of Top Gun called Fat Gun. I thought that was alright. Good theme episode. Apart from that, that was basically it. So yeah, unfortunately I'm going to move this one into bad as well. So that's all seasons 1 to 23 ranked. They're going to continue making seasons, but these are all the current ones. It's going to be pretty clear to you guys that I obviously favor the early seasons of Family Guy. I just think the joke writing there was so good. And also, I just think the writing, just in terms of the narratives and storylines, was a lot sharper there as well. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know your favorite episodes as well. So yeah, if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got more ranking videos on the way, got more animations, more parodies in the pipeline. Stick around for that, and thanks for watching. See you for the next one.